Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the North Platte City Council meeting here on Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. Of course, we're here in the City Council chambers. I am calling the meeting officially to order, please. And we have an invocation by Jean Anderson. Jean? Sorry, Jean is from the First Christian Church.
Dear God of justice and mercy, thank you for all of those blessings you have given to us individually as well as to citizens of this fine city. Help the community leaders who are giving up their time and talent to serve the people of North Platte. Help them to give wise and thoughtful decisions. Help each one of us here, from the mayor to the council, to the attorneys, to the presenters, to the opponents, to the proponents, to all of us. Please give us the ability to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding. Help us to speak with respect. And finally, Father, please give each one of us a renewed sense, a renewal because of your presence here with us tonight, and the joy of helping make this city a better place to live. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jean. Roll call, please, Angie.
Leslie?
Here.
Kyle? Here. Folds?
Here.
Lucas?
Here.
Eric?
Here.
Landers?
Here.
Baker?
Here.
Woods?
Here. A current copy of the Open Meetings Act of the State of Nebraska is posted on the wall at the back of the council chambers. Meeting procedure. The public may address specific agenda items at the pleasure of the mayor. If recognized by the mayor, please identify yourself by stating your name and address. Please address the council through the mayor and limit your remarks. We respect our city employees and request that any complaints or criticisms of employees not be aired in a public meeting. Concerns about employees should be brought to the attention of the city administrator or the mayor. Individuals in violations will be declared out of order. Okay, we have award accolades and presentations. So we have some awards and accolades tonight. It's very exciting. The first one we have, both of these are relating to the transit department. And Renee asked me to read this in appreciation of her employees. And when I get done reading, any transit employees, if you'd stand up, I don't want to make you stand through the whole reading. So, certificate of appreciation. On Saturday, September 23, 2023, a fire broke out at the Sutherland Care Center. Residents of the Sutherland Care Center were evacuated immediately to the Sutherland School. The Director of Emergency Management, Brandon Myers, called the North Platte Public Transit for their assistance for transportation to North Platte. North Platte Public Transit employees responded immediately to the dispatcher's call, and 5 public transit buses arrived at the Sutherland School to help transport residents to Centennial Nursing Home in North Platte. The remaining public transit bus drivers were on standby, waiting for the phone call to help assist. Tuesday, September 26, 2023, the public transit drivers assisted in transporting the 30 residents back to the Sutherland Care Center. With appreciation and gratitude, I would like to recognize North Platte Transit public drivers Sammy Erickson, Marion Grosseth, Mitzi Kramer, Terry Mooney, Felix Soto, Robin Swartwood, Krista Woods, Leanne Henry, Dan Battershell, Leanne Serrano, and the remaining public transit drivers who are on standby to help with the transporting of residents to the Sutherland Care Center. We are very proud and privileged to have employees with heart and dedication for the city of North Platte and Lincoln County. Employees like you make North Platte proud. Do we have any transit employees here other than Renee? All right. Excellent work. Thank you very much. We will hang this plaque over at the Transit Center, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. I'll get it to you later. Okay. Now, we also have the honor to present, by the way, this is not a cooler up here, just say, well, it is a cooler, but there's nothing in it except this trophy, because our own Renee White recently received an award for her strong work as the manager of the Transit Center. So she received the Rookie of the Year award from the NATP Managers Workshop. And this is someone who's been employed for 5 years or less, and also demonstrates dedication, positive attitude, and contributions to the transit system. So Renee White, Rookie of the Year Manager, September 26, 2023. Let's all give Renee a hand. It takes great leaders to make a great city, so I think we should always take the time to honor those who do great things. So thank all of you very much, and thank you to the transit employees for their great work to help our community neighbors. You're welcome. Consent agenda. All matters under the consent agenda are considered by the City Council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. Any City Council member may, however, remove an item from consent by request. Number 1, approve the minutes of September 19, 2023. Number 2, place on file Treasurer's Report for August 2023. Number 3, approve reappointments of Cynthia Guchenreiter, Don Staroska, and Diane Morales to the Animal Control Commission. Number 4, adopt resolution for signing the municipal annual certification of program compliance 2023 and authorize the mayor to sign the municipal annual certification of program compliance to Nebraska Board of Public Roads Classifications and Standards 2023. Number 5, authorize and approve the renewal of two-year interlocal agreement with network services between the City of North Platte and Lincoln County.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Vols. Calling the question on the consent agenda, please. Consent agenda is passed. Thank you. Moving on to the regular agenda. Approve bid in the amount of $365,895.00 and authorize the mayor to sign a contract for a new water well at the airport with Charles Sargent Irrigation, Inc. of Broken Bow, Nebraska.
I move to approve the bid and authorize mayor to sign contract for new water well as presented in council materials.
Second.
I'm going to give that one to Jim Nisley. I'm not sure who won, but okay. Motion by Garrick, second by Nisley. Any discussion on item number 6? Mr. Reeker?
Mr. Mayor, is this tied into the entire public water system?
Correct.
It is, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Lucas?
Yeah, is this a replacement of an existing well, or is this an expansionary well, or could you tell us just a little bit about the project?
I might have Brent come up to tell more, but it is an expansion of our current system, and it's giving a well on the east side of the city that we currently don't have. And it goes under the river, so then, it's out there by the airport, so we would not be without water if there'd be a problem without other parts of the system. I don't know if Brent has anything else to add to that or not.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. what has been stated is correct. It'll be connecting to a 12-inch line out there, and I think the closest well that we either have north or east is over on 12th Street, and this will officially be replacing a well that we lost probably, several years ago, but it's going to be a net expansion as far as capacity. And the other positive is it's very close in proximity to sustainable beef on Newberry. This line connects from the airport directly over to Newberry. So that's another positive with the well. And the water quality was excellent over there, so.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Donna?
I don't know anything about this, so in looking at the comparison between these two bids, there's certain areas where there's a huge difference in pricing. Is that normal?
It can be. There's a little bit of variability on each of those items. Some of the items, like the piping, it includes valves, some fittings, things like that. And sometimes the contractor will put certain costs, like we don't list a bond cost or an insurance cost. They have to put that in somewhere when we do unit prices like this. So some of the variability might be some of the items where they decide to put, if we don't have a listed an item, we don't have a mobilization cost, that sometimes contractors pick a different area. So that can be some of it, and some of it might be just obviously a lot higher price, so.
Well, it shows in the total. I mean, you can
Yes.
see the difference, okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments on number 6, please? Seeing none, calling the question on number 6, please. Number 6 is passed. Number 7, accept and authorize the mayor to sign renewal of the city maintenance agreement number 20 with the Nebraska Department of Transportation.
Mr. Mayor, I move to accept and authorize the mayor to sign the renewal of the city maintenance agreement number 20 with the Nebraska Department of Transportation.
Second.
Motion by Flanders, second by Reeker. Any discussion on item number 7? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 7, please. Item number 7 is passed. Item number 8, first reading and action on revised ordinance number 4137 to add Chapter 119 Games of Skill to Title 11 Business Regulations to the Code of the City of North Platte relating to games of skill.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 413.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Lane and I were just conversing about him reading the ordinance.
My
Yes,
apologies.
please do.
Ordinance number 4137, an ordinance of the City of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, to amend the code of the City of North Platte by adding Chapter 119 entitled Games of Skill to Title 11 Business Regulations, to provide that this ordinance shall be made a part of the code of the City of North Platte, Nebraska, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for the effective date and publication thereof.
Thank you.
Okay, now are we ready?
If you're ready, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 4137 to add Chapter 119 Games of Skill to Title 11 Business Regulations to the Code of the City of North Platte relating to games of skill.
Second.
Motion by Lucas, second by Garrick. Before we have discussion, I just want to make it clear to the council that the city attorney advised that since this ordinance is modified and changed a little bit over the past few weeks, actually not drastically, but somewhat, that we should put it back to first reading. So unless someone motions it to pass in a single reading, we would likely see this at least one more time. So just so we're clear on that, that's why it's back to first reading. So, okay, with that being said, questions, comments?
Will there be a public hearing on it? No.
No, and now I did, anyone who'd like to make a comment, I did tell one gentleman if he wanted to comment at this time, he was welcome to come and do that. I do not see him in the audience at this point.
I was gonna.
Oh, okay.
I was asked to come talk.
Go ahead, sir. Come on up then.
Mayor, council.
My name is Randy Swarting. I live at 992 West Fairway Avenue in North Platte. I'm here just mainly to talk about some of the issues I see with the curfew. North Platte's kind of a shift town, so there are a lot of people that do play these in the middle of the night that maybe get off work at 1 in the morning, don't want to go home. A lot of the issues that we have had in the past were with basically two operators. One of those operators is no longer in existence, and the other one is on its way out, I guess. I also had machines I'm just a vendor. I supply machines to the area. I had machines in the old place that we were having issues with, and then a new business went into the place that we had the issues with. We actually took our machines out of the old place because there was too many problems. It's a night and day difference between what it was and what it is now. It's run completely different. A lot of the things that have happened probably happened at times that weren't really involved in the hours of the curfew. So, I mean, like there was a shooting brought up, which I don't want to make light of that, but it happened if I read the paper right, 9:30 at night. So that wouldn't have had anything to do with stopping that. Another part is it's not really easy to shut machines down. I mean, it's not like just shutting off a switch. There'll have to be a lot of steps probably taken by people that are open 24 hours. And the other part is, I don't know how many have worked in retail, but if you put a note up that maybe says closed, whatever, signs, who's at fault if somebody moves that sign and decides to play it? I mean, it's just could cause some problems there. Could actually add to the police force's, workload by enforcing the rule. The state is also changing the way they interpret their laws. They are now, I know there was a guy that tried to get one that was a felon, that they refused his license, and so he couldn't get a permit. And the other thing it might be, that as far as I know, this would be the only town, city that has this curfew. So it could make a lot of, confusion with the general public passing through on the interstate, just people in general. So that's kind of just the concerns I wanted to bring up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments in the audience on this subject? Okay. Donna, I think you asked for the floor first, so.
Oh, did I? Oh, okay. I did contact the revenue agent here in town and also ended up talking to an attorney at Department of Revenue in Lincoln. Got some information, but nothing really that would, to me, dictate that we need to cut their hours. They are a business, it's legitimate. There's a $250 fee, annual fee to the state. And from the one operator I talked to, he doesn't mind the $500 fee, but he doesn't really want to cut his hours because that's taken away his revenue. And for the most part, there were a couple of operators, owners that did kind of push the envelope and things did happen, but I think the state is trying to kind of crack down on that. It's kind of the opinion that the law was passed, these machines flooded in here. I mean, this attorney sent me a spreadsheet of every towns I've never heard of in Nebraska, and how many machines, how many locations they have. And it just kind of caught everybody a little bit unprepared, and so now they're playing catch up. So I guess I am kind of opposed to cutting a business's hours back to the point where they have to pay a larger fee now for the machine. It seems kind of counteroperative, I guess. That's my speech. Thanks.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Mark?
Yeah, I've thought about this. too. I don't like the idea of the curfew. I was for it in the beginning, but after thinking about it and listening to some of these owners' comments, it doesn't seem right. As long as they're running their business properly and there aren't any problems, to take away time they could be earning money. They'll have to pay taxes on anything they earn, so, that's good for us. And there's the law wending its way through the legislature is, from what I hear, going to put a 20% tax on their income. That'll come back to, well, who knows where it'll come back to. The law hasn't passed yet, so. But, that's a big chunk of their income coming out now, so I'd kind of like to see the curfew go away and just let them operate.
Okay. Others have comments or questions? Pete?
I've been on both sides of this fence thinking about this. But we are in the unique position to institute policy. That's what we do here. And I appreciate that the machines have been cleaned up, but we're instituting a policy because we saw a need to make a stricter policy because of what's gone on here. So I think there can be future people coming into town that maybe a year from now we would say, God, I wish we would have put that curfew back in. I don't know. I've gone back and forth, and I appreciate the good owners, but I still think it's a sound policy in my part to align it with everything else that's in town, with bars and that, and nefarious activities. So I know we have a lot of shift workers, but there's a lot of things to do in town, with the exclusion of games of skill. I just feel we need to take the policy that we've outlined and try that for now. A lot of my response to this comes from visiting with the police department, and they feel that they want the curfew. So I'm going to back the police department on this one and go with the curfew on that. So thank you.
Mr. Lucas?
This will probably just sound like an echo of Councilman Volz's comments, but I've had a number of people contact me about this through our operators, and they've explained that the truck stops, that it can be attractive for people who need rest time, and it provides entertainment. And that all makes sense to me, and I don't have anything against people operating good businesses, but our police department has, I think, indicated that this is taxing on taxpayer resources and is distracting to them providing the safety and soundness of our community and being able to protect that. And I didn't really think of it this way, but one officer I spoke with pointed to the fact that this is a time of day when the public isn't out paying attention to what's going on necessarily, and so when things occur, it takes more awareness and more distraction of them. And so I'm following the same way you do too, but obviously I'm sensitive to what Mr. Swearing. I mean, he makes good points. I don't disagree with anything he's saying. I think this is just one of those tough calls.
Ed?
Mr. Mayor, I too kind of wrestled around with this in my head, and I appreciate everybody's comments. I know technically this is not a gambling game, but that's how I see it. And it's interesting, the online Telegraph today had an article about since legalized gambling has been implemented in Nebraska, that the calls for gambling counseling has increased significantly. It didn't reference specifically games of skill, but it's kind of my opinion that when you get the promise of getting something in return for little investment, oftentimes the propensity is to continue because you think you're gonna win something. And that doesn't work out very well for most people. And so, I agree with Pete when he said we set policy, and, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on any of the people that have these machines in their businesses. I just don't think it's a good move for us to, remove the hourly restriction.
Okay. Hold on just a second, Donna. Anyone else want to say something before I have Donna go second time? Okay, go ahead, Donna.
Okay, in speaking with the attorney, he advised me that Senator Breese did bring LB 685 to the legislature, but because of the filibustering and everything that went on, it didn't go anywhere. But apparently they want, or what his bill is wanting to do is to move the revenues from skill games over to be treated like the Keno funds are. And also to take it from Department of Revenue and hand it off to the State Racing and Gambling Commission. So, I mean, if it's, the future is that it probably will be treated like as gambling. And if we have a casino, are we going to limit the hours? I mean, I don't know. Personally, maybe we could put something in there like if they have police calls, 1, 2, 3, 3 are out or something like that. I mean, put some restrictions in there, but for these operators that have a clean business, and that is the part of their business or their business, I hate to limit their hours to the times of day when people sometimes even need that. Even the Department of Revenue lady said that during COVID, it was, you know, kind of a lifesaver for some of those people because everybody else was shut down and at least they could go have something to do. So I understand in a perfect world, you know, we probably wouldn't have this kind of entertainment, but I did speak at length to, on this topic to people. So I don't know if, you know, if we can amend it to give them a chance to keep a clean operation and stay open. And if there is problems, then, you know, 3 strikes, you're back to this. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Mayor, I have a question. Do the police have to go out to all the truck stops? That's my question. I mean, or is it part of the sheriff's office? I mean, if a Flying J or
Those are all within our
so
jurisdiction.
the police department has to go to calls to all those places. Well, you know, the one thing in listening, it troubles me a little bit. First of all, I'm not in favor of these things. I agree with Ed. They are illegal, and the thing I have to balance this thing on, is in voting on this, if it's truly a law enforcement issue and causing them concern, and, you know, a burden on law enforcement, then I'm inclined to vote for it. Is that a correct statement, Lane? I think
That, Chief Reeves isn't here, but that's been some of the sentiment. I don't know. I guess I don't have numbers on it, but they said there is more calls usually to these places and later at night.
And I'm not saying the truck stops are the problem, I'm just saying that, okay.
So is there a selected number where the calls are increased, I wonder?
I couldn't answer that. I don't have anything.
I had Chief Reeves run the numbers a while back, and I'm sorry I didn't think to grab the piece of paper, but it was a relatively even distribution across the various entities. None of them had in the double digits of calls, and there was a couple of them that had 0, and most of them had 2 or 3 or 4, somewhere in that vicinity.
During these hours?
It was not split out by hours. It was just calls to those locations, so.
So,
it doesn't, I had him run last year and this year, and it was not substantially different between the years. So, in terms of the overall number of calls.
Well, it was brought to my attention that any criminal activity that might be going on, if these places were closed, that's not gonna stop, you know, it's not gonna stop the criminal activity, so, I don't know. At least things are open and there's criminal activity, there should be I mean, the one I saw, they had cameras all over it, it should be easy to catch or see what's going on. Anyway.
So would you like to make a motion?
I would, let's see, how do I wanna do this? I would move that we leave,
Go ahead.
I'm not sure how to do this.
Strike the portions that, with curfew.
I would just like to omit the curfew on this business. And if law enforcement is called in 3 times in a year, can I get it that complicated?
You can move whatever you want.
Mark wants to say something, I'll let him finish.
But I mean,
Well, you're in the middle of a motion, so you need to complete your
okay.
motion, or you can pause it and,
I'm
or
gonna
just
pause
stop
it
it.
and listen,
Okay,
in case somebody else has some ideas.
Mark, go ahead.
all right, this is a hard thing to balance, and that's the trouble. I mean, I don't like gambling. I wish we didn't have gambling, but we do. It's legal, so we have to live with it. And then I also have to factor in that we have free will, if you're a believer. So, you know, I'm not in judgment of anybody that partakes of this, because a lot of people gamble, and it's not a problem for them. You know, it's just fun. I've gambled. It's fun. You know, I have nothing against it. It just, you know, is not the best thing. Now, the businesses that are running well, and this is what government seems, in my opinion, to do. Because there were some bad apples, we pass a law that penalizes everybody. Well, we could do it this way. This has been rolling around my head too. It's a takeoff on Donna's idea, where we reinstitute, we get rid of the curfew, but we put in some kind of a system, and this is something we'd have to think about. We'd have to postpone this, table it, where there is some kind of a system, a layered system is what I'm thinking, where, you know, you have a violation and you're like on probation. Say you have another violation while you're on probation, then you get the curfew. You know, and then it progresses until where if you have another violation, then you would be banned, you know, you'd be on curfew for 5 years or something. You know, where we work out some kind of a system like that. That way the owners that run a good, clean business can run it all the time. And if you don't, then you pay the penalty. And to me, that seems balanced.
If I may, I think Bill would have to do some research on this, because I don't know the city if we can suspend a license. It's issued by the state of Nebraska.
Well, not suspending their
we're saying-
license, just instituting the curfew.
Well,
And I don't, he should weigh in on it, because
I'm not arguing with you.
Yeah,
I'm
you could be
concerned that
right.
That would be that we're somehow, I don't know, we have the legal authority to even suspend an operation. We can maybe set hours.
although that's what we're doing.
Yeah, we're
We
setting
put in
hours,
the
but I don't know
curfew.
that we could pick out a particular business. We could do it for the whole bunch, but not just one. That's what I'm trying to say.
If you're asking me to weigh in, I'm happy to do so.
Well, we will need your opinion,
Certainly.
yes.
I-
I'm
If
not
you'd
a
like me to
lawyer.
weigh in now, I'm happy to weigh in now. If you'd like to discuss with me outside of the meeting, I'm happy to do that too.
Well, you can weigh in now.
My opinion would be that statutorily, the city is allowed to impose these types of restrictions regarding hours of operation by the statutory authority that's granted by the legislature. The idea of somehow imposing restrictions where if, say, an operator has 3 strikes against them and then you take away certain rights, to me, that's something that would require allowing them to have a public hearing where they could put on a defense and then the council would have to consider evidence. And so it would be a much more burdensome process that would require a hearing, because anytime the government takes any kind of a right away from someone, you have to give them notice and an opportunity to be heard. Whereas where we're just restricting the hours that these types of businesses can operate, the legislature has provided the city the authority to do that as a uniform application.
Okay, that's kind of what I was hoping you would say. I figured there'd have to be some kind of a hearing. We can't just arbitrarily do it. They have to have a right to defend themselves. But my opinion is still the best way to go.
So do we want to table this and talk about options?
Well, if you want, I could make an amendment in that respect, and it's voted down, then, you know, we don't have to table it. And if it is approved, then we would want to table it so that we could work out the system. Would work, wouldn't it?
So another question.
Or we could just table it so you could all think about it for a while.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Lucas?
I would just like to remind everybody that we tabled this originally. I motioned to table this because I wanted to explore the tying of this to somebody who has a liquor license, because my concern was that a lot of these were unmanned, and that was creating a greater burden on law enforcement. And I don't mean to speak for the city attorney or anybody else, but the way I understood his review of that was that the state already has a licensing requirement, so we're really not in a great position to try to have almost like a local licensing system, because there's already a statewide licensing system. I'm still concerned about the state's enforcement of their licensing system, but I know Mr. Schwarting's explained to me that that's improving, and that, so I mean, my suggestion is that you guys should consider, I'm not willing to make the amendment motion, but I think us voting on the curfew or no curfew is a healthy discussion and debate.
Okay, I move that we exclude the time frame in the motion.
So just to be clear, Donna, you're motioning to remove the
time constraints
the
of
time
operation.
constraint. So would you be willing to adjust your motion to say that you motion to remove paragraph 119.04, which is hours of operation?
Okay. I move that we remove paragraph 119.04, hours of operation.
Oh, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Tryon and a second by Woods to remove paragraph 119.04, hours of operation, from the ordinance as it is presented. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Mr. Reeker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's been some comparisons between liquor stores and games of skill operations. I'm kind of curious, and unfortunately we don't have Chief Police here tonight, but I'm wondering if there's a commensurate number of calls for the police at the liquor stores as there are with the games of skill.
Sorry, I don't know. I didn't ask him to look at those numbers, so I'm not inclined to speculate either, so
No,
I don't
wouldn't
know.
want you
So.
to. You know, if there's a correlation, then we could maybe derive some kind of an understanding whether there's more police activity required with these games of skill as opposed to a liquor store. And I have no idea what that answer might be. But anyway, that was my question.
Officer Hoagland, do you have anything that you'd like to add to this discussion, being the potential expert sitting there in the audience? I would give you the floor for a minute if you'd like. If you don't want to comment, that's fine too.
I can't say that to be able to comment on it. The administration's out of town, the chief's out of town, so he asked me to come to the meeting, but he didn't ask me to level an opinion about this. But I think the idea of giving them 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out is a bad idea, because I don't think people would call. I think people, if they had a problem, they wouldn't call us because they know that that's counting against their tally if you're going to do something like that. So I think bars do the same thing. If they get too many calls, people with alarms on their businesses, if they get too many calls, they get billed for some of those. So I think a numbering system is, I think it has to be more universal than that for what it's worth. So.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Officer Hoagland? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Flanders?
I guess coming from a law enforcement background and from what I do now is I see these skills games more or less a gambling entity, and we're seeing more and more individuals having issues in gambling. And I guess, and then continuing on and coming back to the law enforcement aspect, it's my opinion, nothing good happens after 1 o'clock in the morning. When I worked law enforcement, it was usually bad calls that are going on. And I guess just adding this on top of that isn't a good idea. And that's the way I believe, and I think we need to set precedents and do hours. So I think it's just putting an additional burden, especially if we do conditions on those. If we open it up 24 hours and we put conditions on it, that's just putting more burden on the police force and whoever's going to be dealing with that.
Okay. Donna?
Okay, in talking to one of the operators, he was willing to go from 1 a.m. till 6 a.m. So I guess, I know we have this motion on the floor, but I could always withdraw it, right?
You could, yes.
And maybe, can we have a discussion about hours from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. closing?
You could withdraw your motion and make another motion if you would like, and then we could have a discussion about that.
Okay, because obviously this isn't going to pass. So I will withdraw my first motion and discuss the option of a different time, like from 1 until 6 a.m.
Okay, hold on a second. Mr. Woods, do you withdraw your second?
Yeah, I'll withdraw my second.
Okay, thank you. So, did you want to make a new motion?
I move that the hours of operation, paragraph 11904, be changed from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. each and every day of the week.
Donna, I just want to ask you about your wording. I think you said you moved that the hours of operation be from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. So that would mean they could only operate from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Oh,
I
no.
don't think that's what you
Hours of
intended, so.
Oh, no, I meant to, you're right.
Okay, so let's reword that.
Okay, so I move paragraph 11904, hours of operation, that the skill and betting capabilities to be operated within the city would not be between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m.
Okay. Got that, Angie? Okay, all right, just making sure. All right, do we have a second for that motion? Okay, Mr. Wood seconds again. So, okay, do we have discussion on this new motion, which is essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, Donna, to adjust the hours in which skills games could not operate to be from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m.?
Yes, in talking to one of the operators,
Okay,
he would consent to that.
okay. Do we have discussion on that item, on this motion? Mr. Lucas?
Just a quick question. Was 8 AM selected in the proposed ordinance because that is consistent with liquor and beer sales? Is that how that works? Okay. I just wanted to make sure I knew where 8 AM came from originally. Thank you.
Other questions or comments on this one? Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment that was just made by Councilwoman Tryon to essentially to adjust the hours in which skills games would not be able to operate from 1 AM to 6 AM. So a vote of yes would mean that you're agreeing to the amendment. A vote of no would be you're not agreeing to the amendment. Calling the question.
Ed,
Mr. Reeker, your clicker is malfunctioning. Thank you. It would appear that that motion has failed. So now we're back to the original discussion, or the original ordinance under first reading, which has the hours of operation outside of 1 AM to 8 AM. So, do we have other questions or comments, Mr. Reeker?
This whole thing has given me time to reread the ordinance. And,
Oh, no.
I'm not gonna read it out loud.
I should have brought more paper.
But if you look under hours of operation, it says game of skill with betting capabilities. Betting really does imply gambling. So, enough said.
Okay. Other questions or comments on this one? Seeing none, calling the question on the ordinance as presented to the council.
this is first reading, is that correct?
This is first reading.
To the original.
Passes. Okay. On first reading. Excuse me, the first reading has passed, to be clear. Okay, thank you, everyone. Always appreciate a spirited debate. Okay, we now will have a public hearing, and the public hearing will be on item number 9, which is to adopt ordinance number 4149, annexing 1617 East Railroad Street, described as all of Lot 119 and the west 114 feet of Lot 120 Neville subdivision, Lincoln County, Nebraska, consisting of approximately 3.12 acres into the corporate limits of the city of North Platte. Lane?
Ordinance number 4149, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, to include within the corporate limits of the city of North Platte certain lands described as all of Lot 119 and the west 114 feet of Lot 120, the Ville subdivision, Lincoln County, Nebraska, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the effective date and publication thereof.
Thank you. Okay, we have a public hearing. Anyone in the audience would like to comment on item number 9, please come to the microphone and say your piece.
Excuse me, is this the weathercraft? This is not.
No, it is approximately the area where the old stockyards are.
Stockyards, okay.
Yep, yep.
I move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Vols, second by Garrick to close the public hearing. Calling the question and closing the public hearing, please. Public hearing is now closed. Thank you, everyone. Council will now consider adopting ordinance number 4149, annexing 1617 East Railroad Street, described as all of Lot 119 and the west 114 feet of Lot 120 Neville subdivision, Lincoln County, Nebraska, consisting of approximately 3.12 acres, into the corporate limits of the city of North Platte.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4149, annexing 1617 East Railroad Street, described as all of Lot 119 and the west 1/14th of Lot 120 Neville subdivision, Lincoln County, Nebraska, consisting of approximately 3.12 acres into the corporate limits of the city of North Platte on first reading.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Lucas. We have discussion on item number 9, please. Judy, where's Judy? Is that?
Mayor? Second was on Mr. Vols, Councilman Vols.
I thank you for the correction. Motion by Garrick, second by Vols. My ears are failing, sorry. Judy, just yes or no real quick. This was requested by the owner, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, that is correct. All right, thank you. Okay, discussion on item number 9.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr.
How
Lucas?
does this impact our overall planning where we're piecemealing such a small parcel and looking at annexing it into the city?
Judy, would you comment being the planner?
Mayor, council, this, I wouldn't say it really impacts the planning by piecemealing it because it is adjacent and abutting the current city limits. So it's not like we're skipping and leaving a portion. And since it was requested, it's very easy to do. We just pass an ordinance at the request of the property owner. There's already water, sewer available. It's not really going to have, being as small a property as it is, it shouldn't have any impact to law enforcement, fire, anything like that. So to me, it's just a request from the property owner. They've already have water, sewer, all infrastructure's there, and it's abutting and adjacent to the city. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. So what I'm hearing you say is that the owner can access all of the public utilities at this time.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Judy before she walks away? Go ahead, Donna.
Is there any structures on there? I didn't drive by there, sorry to say, and I wish I had, because that's not a very appealing neighborhood.
I should have provided you with an aerial, but I know there's one for sure. There might be another structure. But yeah, they're used for storage currently.
Okay, so is it a well-kept area?
For that area, yes, it decently kept, yeah. We don't have any nuisance violations or anything like that on the property.
And was there a reason provided why he wanted to be annexed?
Just wants to be within the city limits of the city of North Platte.
Mr. Woods?
Has the owner owned this for a long time, or was this part of all that land that Cement Products sold out there?
I couldn't tell you without looking how long he's owned it, but I think he has owned it for quite a few years. It wasn't a recent purchase.
That's what I thought.
Other questions or comments on item number 9? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 9, please. Item number 9 is passed. Item number 10, we have another public hearing. This one is to to discuss adopting the resolution as presented in council materials and approval of the City of North Platte Murphy Tractor Commercial Redevelopment Plan and approval of related actions. We don't have an ordinance on this, so opening the public hearing. Anyone would like to comment? Well, Mr. Bacon, long time no see.
Good to be back.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Mike Bacon, Gothenburg, Nebraska, prepared the proposed redevelopment plan for the redevelopment authority. The redeveloper is Murphin Inc., Troy Mollinger, their director of real estate finance, is here and will explain the financial need for tax increment financing. 17.5 acre site will take about $1 million worth of site preparation to make it usable. Not going to use all of the lot for the 28,000 square foot plus square foot building for their new to move their operation. The plan provides for significant public infrastructure that would be borne by the developer. Rough budget's shy of $700,000 worth of street, and I think slightly more than $1 million worth of site preparation and utility work. So there will be paved lot, parking. Mr. Pearson tells me this property has been looked at a number of times, and because of the cost of putting in the public infrastructure, it has just not been developed. So I'll be glad to answer any questions on that portion of the plan. There would be some land left over for future development. The impact of TIF on that, if that is granted by the council, is that this project we think will generate $140,000 to $150,000 annually for TIF. The project is currently priced at over $8.5 million. We don't believe that the assessor will hit that number in terms of valuation, so it would be less than that. The rest of the property would be available for sale if the redeveloper so chose, and the taxes on that property could be pledged towards getting the TIF bond paid off faster and return to the contributing tax base. Glad to answer any questions, but I'd ask Troy to come up and give you how come we need TIF on this project.
If the redevelopment plan gets approved and TIF gets approved for the frontage road, primarily, is what I'm kind of looking at it for, and the infrastructure there. The other two lots, they could be structured for TIF financing also, or is that not accurate? I'm just trying to clean that up.
Theoretically, so the eligible TIF expenses that could be used if they were subdivided off would be site acquisition, individual site prep that's not covered under this one, and they could do public parking if it was truly public, and then they could do enhancements to structure in excess of local design standards. But other than that, they're pretty limited. So, the heavy lift here is site prep and the public infrastructure, and that would then make those other lots available to develop more quickly.
Absolutely.
Without this impediment.
Thank you.
Troy?
Yeah. So Mr. Bacon, Troy Mullinger, Murphin Inc., Wichita, Kansas. Mr. Bacon just asked me to give some quick narrative to the property and kind of convey our need for the TIF. This is a development for primarily Murphy Tractor, which is currently operating off of Highway 83, kind of southeast of this location. They currently lease that facility. The facility is dated to current standards, and then in addition, they need to expand. They need more room. So because of that, being a preferred developer for them, we're going to look at the viability of this site. They would be expanding their building footprint by about 30% or so, and I believe the head count would increase by 6, is my understanding, for a total employment cost of about $2.2 million in the area. And the difficulty that we've had on this site is really threefold. One of it is just environmental, as far as the capital markets themselves. I'm sure everyone's aware of what's going on in the debt market and the interest rates associated with it, and it's just gotten very, very tough to greenlight a new project from a lender perspective. So not only is it just the interest rate itself, but they're requiring deposits down. They're gonna require likely guarantees on it, so it puts contingent debt on the balance sheet. It's just really running through the gauntlet to get a project approved from a bank right now. Secondary to that is, as Mr. Bacon described, the site costs are elevated due to the public infrastructure, the road, the utility costs. It's not a cheap site compared to what we're used to dealing with. And then the third part of that is another story or narrative that I'm sure you guys have heard before, which is elevated construction costs currently. Labor and materials is still high. There's backlogs on certain items. It's just still a very difficult market to develop in. So those are kind of the contributing factors. And when speaking to Mr. Pearson about it, and he was aware of us wanting to move forward with this project, or at least explore the viability of it. And once we got to those numbers, past the rough order of magnitude bids, we said, this is not looking good. This is something that it's not going to be low enough hanging fruit for us to actually green light this. He had suggested potentially exploring options with this route to kind of right-size those project costs and allow this project to move forward. So that's essentially the narrative to kind of why we're here and what we're asking for. And if there's any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to give it a shot.
Thank you. So did you look at any or explore any other sites in town that maybe wouldn't have been so costly to relocate to?
There was actually several sites explored in town. One of the things that we wanted to do is keep a location that had really, really good ingress and egress on a finished basis, because there's obviously that frontage road that we have to put in. Because of that heavier machinery going through the area, we really need that signalized intersection and that highway location. And although there were some that were explored from the site selection committee, this is the only one that really proved truly viable from a geographic location.
Go ahead, Ed.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, was your name Eric?
Troy.
Troy, sorry.
No
Oh,
problem.
I got Eric on that.
No problem.
How long have you folks owned that?
We have owned that since last September, I believe.
Okay, so relatively recent purchase.
Relatively recent purchase, yeah.
Okay. And the public infrastructure, help me understand that. It seems to me like that is a road that's gonna make access to your site available.
Yes, and the south of the rest of the parcel as well.
Which would make the rest of the property more saleable, which would increase its value.
It would make it developable, yes.
Yes. And so this frontage road, is it gonna be paved? Is it gonna be gravel? Is it gonna be 2 lanes? Is it gonna be 1 lane? Is it gonna have curbs and gutters? What kind of road are we talking about?
We have taken our cue from the city on that one, so if I could, I would rely on
Brent.
No one wanted my finger going towards them either, I'll say that much. I could see that, that was clear.
That looked like a game show.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. If it's going to be a public infrastructure street, what we'd do is it would follow the city standards for street sections that we have, which would be typically the 30-foot paved curb and gutter. Tractor Supply to the south is a little bit different, if you're familiar with that, as far as it doesn't have a curb and gutter in that particular area because of drainage problems. A lot of this area was set up with Highway 83, and so we're working around with what the state did when they did the interstate and redid Highway 83. So those are some things that we have to look at as well.
Will this then tie into the street at Tractor Supply?
It would go all the way down there. I guess that would be the question as far as, I haven't seen the plan, but that would be the understanding. For them to get across those lots to the south, they'd have to tie into Tractor Supply.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my understanding.
Yeah, that is my understanding as well.
So that frontage road would be a completed concrete road from Tractor Supply all the way back up to Walker, which would be better than I think what we have on any of the other segments in that corridor.
But as far as any utilities, it looks to me like your utilities are already in place. You've got electricity there. I don't see water. It says end of water line, so apparently water
There's
actually comes
sewer
in.
out back. I don't think there's water. There's water down by Tractor Supply. That would probably have to get extended up for those two lots as well.
And this would be part of that project?
Yes, there's a line item right now on the project, if my memory serves me, that's about $198,000 in utility site costs.
And will the north end of that water line just dead end, or will that tie into an existing water line on Walker Road and complete a loop, or no?
Right now, it dead ends at Tractor Supply. It depends a little bit on how that develops further. It would be best if we could tie in to Walker, but that's something we'd probably have to have some discussions on as far as size and maybe who's paying for what. Just from the standpoint that this north lot is served right now. And so that's something we'd probably visit with Municipal Light and Water as far as trying to figure out the best plan between all parties.
I guess I'm confused, Brent. You said the north lot is served now.
Correct. Where as shown here with the proposed building, there is a water line, a main, actually stubbed in 8 inches, stubbed across for this north parcel. The south lots, the future lots, there's water on Tractor Supply that's stubbed north and dead-ended with a fire hydrant right now.
So extending the water line to satisfy Murphy Tractor's new building isn't a prerequisite because there's already water on the site.
Correct, but for the future lots, it would be needed.
Right, and I understand that.
Yeah, so correct.
Mr. Lucas?
Yeah, sure. I wanted to go back to the question about ownership. I just did a very brief research in the GIS, and it looked to me like an affiliate or somebody had owned this property for 7 or 8 years. Is that research incorrect that I did on the property?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
To my understanding, we closed on it last September, and it was an arm's length transaction with just a prior owner. I wasn't aware of any affiliate owning it.
Okay, thank you.
Troy, I think you can sit down.
Okay. Just one more thing I'd like to say. As far as what we do at Murphin Inc., we're long-term portfolio holders. We're not merchant builders. So really the expansion of these facilities and the additional headcount within the company of Murphy Tractor and our development of the area really represents an enduring relationship with the community. It's not something in 2 years or 3 years we're going to sell and make a profit. This is something that we're anchoring ourselves to this community. So,
Mr. Mayor, I have another
Oh,
question.
hold on, I guess I can't leave, Troy. Go ahead, Ed.
You mentioned how many new jobs are you going to be needed to handle the extra workload? I think you said a 30% increase in
yes, sir.
work.
Yeah, so, and just for clarification's sake, I'm not involved in the operations of Murphy Tractor, but I did have these conversations with them knowing that it would be pertinent to your questions tonight. I was told currently is a 20-person head count at that facility?
A 20 head count?
20 person? Yes, sir.
20 person, okay, go ahead.
Yes. And there will be 6 additional jobs added. From the description that I was getting and kind of the narrative, it sounds like those are going to be decently paying mechanic jobs because they're expanding their bay areas and the service work that they can perform.
And so what was the increased salary revenue that would be generated for those jobs, did you say?
I did not say,
Okay.
I know the total is 2.28 million.
Okay,
And the increase was certainly in the 6 figures, but I don't know
okay.
precisely what.
All right, thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, still have the public hearing going. Anyone else wish to make a comment on item number 10?
Mr. Mayor and Council, The only other piece I would offer is this has been recommended by Planning and Zoning and the Community Redevelopment Authority. My recollection is it's been unanimous on both of those counts.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Vols, second by Garrick to close the public hearing. Calling the question and closing the public hearing, please. Public hearing is now closed. Thank you. Council will now consider adopt the resolution as presented in council materials and approval of the City of North Platte Murphy Tractor Commercial Redevelopment Plan and approval of related actions. Kind of had discussion already, but if we need to have further discussion, this would be the time to do it.
I move to adopt the resolution as presented in council materials and approval of the City of North Platte Murphy Tractor Commercial Redevelopment Plan and approval of related actions.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Vols. Technically, this is the time to have discussion. Sorry, a little ahead of myself there. Anyone have anything to offer? Okay, Mr. Lucas.
Yeah, just a few thoughts I want to share with the group. I mean, this is a great employer, been a great business in the community. I love the look of the project. I just don't know that they need it to do this project. That's my concern, is the but-for clause here. Pretty big bond at a little over $1 million, and with current interest rates on bonds at a $2 million tax projection. And so I thought a lot about the different projects in that area that we have TIF'd and we haven't TIF'd. And I think that deserves some thoughts. I mean, Hobby Lobby was TIF'd, Menards was TIF'd, that North Platte, the hotel that's under construction was TIF'd. Also had an assessment district with it, though, for paying for infrastructure. Of course, the mall redevelopment. If you come to some of the other areas, like there's a big remodel of Time Saver right there, Tractor Supply, Ford dealership rebuilt. You know, Runza recently put up a project on the one-ways, Fat Dogs, McDonald's. And I guess what's tough about this one is most of the time when we've TIF'd it, it's had a major infrastructure or major employment growth factor to it. So I'm having trouble frankly, with the size of the bond on this one for the project, because I just don't know if my gut instincts are that it fits the but-for clause at this size of bond request. But I appreciate that where the world's at today is difficult, and they are working off of a 17-acre site, which is kind of a small, big site and a big, small site. So I got to just tell you guys, this is one I've been really wrestling with, because I'm concerned about the size of the bond being very high for what's on the table.
Mr. Rolls?
The one thing I look at in this project is that we will get an additional 2 lots further to the south off this frontage road. This area has been tied up for an awfully long time, and it seems when we get developers coming in doing their own thing, then you get a hodgepodge, kind of what's across the street here. So this does allow us to tie from Fremont all the way down to Walker with clean ingress egress. You bring this frontage road up and allowing them to sell the lots, and now you have opportunity for 2 other businesses to come in there. So if we're going to develop this area, someone has brought a plan to us which looks reasonable, and that's why I am a proponent of this, to get some growth spurt down there. So I thank you for doing it. And Murphy Tractor is a good company. I think they honestly can go anywhere they want to go in Nebraska. So I'm glad they chose to come here. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not to be redundant, but I know Murphy Tractor is an excellent company. We've attempted to work in the past on this project, and we work with reputable people. And I know you guys are in the business to make money. You You strictly evaluate the profitability of a project, and if it's not profitable, you're not gonna do it. And when you purchased the land, you had to understand that there's a possibility there may not be any extra money from the government to subsidize the project. I'm not quite the analyst Ty is, but when I look at the cost of the project and the amount of money that's requested, that's significant. But I guess I've always kind of been opposed to giving public money to further a business enterprise for the most part. I just don't think that's within the purview of government, picking winners and losers. I remember years ago when I wasn't on the council then, but when now Acres, it used to be, what was they named before? Same John Deere store. I can't remember what their other name was, but you know, they got a substantial amount of TIF compensation deferral on their taxes for that project. And at the time, I thought, you know, that's really an unfair proposition to the other tractor companies and mechanical companies. I mean, farm equipment companies that have been here for a long, long time too. And now they're competing against an entity that's received a pretty substantial tax advantage, and they have to compete on that same level. And I just don't think that's a good way for us to use the people that we represent. I don't think it's a good way for us to use their funds, their money.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Garrett?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I take a different approach to TIF. I view it more as a tax break, a property tax break for those who are willing to come and invest in our community. And I see that as something that is a positive, not a picking winners and losers. Excuse me. Since it's already blighted, it's not going to increase our percentage, so it's already set up for this. And I guess rolling the dice to say, you know, but for maybe they're going to do it without it. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll move down the road and do something else. So I don't think rolling the dice is the right approach to this. So I'm in favor of this.
Other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, Mr. Lucas, go ahead.
Councilman Reeker, I spent more hours thinking about this one and looking at it than I probably should have, I hate to admit, but I couldn't believe it. I pulled, when Southwest Implement applied for that TIF bond, believe it or not, it was 2009. Can you believe it's been that long? I've got an article with me from December of 2009 that was written in the Telegraph. And I remember that, and I don't know how I would have felt about that request. I wasn't on the city council at that point in time. But I recall that part of the idea was that the community, and this is probably validating Mr. Garrick's point, is that at that point in time the community there wasn't that much activity out in that area on East Walker. And now when you look at it today, there's been a lot of businesses fill along that way. But I remember that being, I think Mr. Bacon was in the chambers for a lot of hours that night because I think there was a lot of debate about that one because I think it was seen as kind of a tweener. But yeah, but believe it or not, that's been 14 years ago.
So
Other,
does-
go ahead, Donna.
So does that mean it's gonna be on the tax rolls next year?
My understanding, is it
Is it
okay to
15
respond to
years
that, Mr.
back
Mayor?
then?
My understanding is it paid off several years early. I think that's off. Do you know, Mr. Bacon? But I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say that one paid off in 8 to 10 years and paid off early, I think.
A substantial number of the TIF projects in North Platte have paid off early, way earlier than is planned. I do not remember that one. I've got a spreadsheet someplace, but yeah, a lot of them have.
Dawn?
That's where I was headed as well.
No, I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't mean to.
That's okay.
I know.
Mayor, council, I'm not certain of the exact date, but we are still paying on that bond. It is getting close, but it is still outstanding.
It's on the list here, so, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Other questions or comments?
I guess I would like to just, of course, you all know I'm not a fan of TIF, so I represent my constituents, and that isn't how I campaign, so I can't deprive them, I guess, when they have to pay more in their taxes because someone else doesn't have to. Their money's going towards a bond.
I do have a clarifying question. This says, about the second page, access to the area will be provided from a new public frontage road entering the area from West Walker Road. So is it the intent of the plan is for that road to be and the associated infrastructure to be entirely public? Is that correct?
That was my understanding on the plan. It'll also be handled in a subdivision agreement or in the redevelopment contract, so that can be a condition of receiving TIF. I believe the cost structure included it so that it completes the road, so from stem to stern, which is, wasn't exactly clear. It's about $700,000 nut just for that. Then there's additional public infrastructure that has to be extended, so north of 8,
Okay.
I believe.
So the intent is it would become
Yes.
a property of the
Yes,
city
yes,
in
yes.
essence?
And
Okay.
that was confirmed by Troy that's their request that it be public. So.
Okay. Just making sure I understood that clearly. Mr. Reeker, thank you.
Mary, thank you. You bring up an interesting question, and I can't tell from the drawing here or the map. Where will this frontage road tie into Walker?
That's an engineering question. Mr. Brent, would you enlighten us, please?
What I've seen for the preliminary plans is going to be west of Detco Circle.
Because that's kind of especially now with the truck stop going to be opened back up again, and that could become a pretty congested area. I suppose there's probably no way to take it on to the west because that's all private property again to the west.
Correct. Again, it would be west of Detco Circle. So when you look at queue length coming off the highway, the bigger concern, thank you, on the map, it shows lining up about with Sapp Brothers, their building, north and south. And probably the biggest issue that we'd look at is queuing back onto the highway, that if someone's trying to make a left turn coming in to the street, the frontage road, and they're waiting, what does that do to the traffic coming southbound going west? Because in the morning, Walker Road can be fairly busy with vehicles waiting at that light. And so going as far west as they can makes sense. And with their layout that they have, there's a balance of, we don't want it going too far west, because then from a frontage road driving movement, you have to go all the way west and then all the way back east. So there's kind of a balance point on trying to make this all work, if that makes sense.
Well, you've got your trucks coming out of the truck fueling station there on Detco Circle. And when they get that all completed, I imagine that's how that's going to operate.
So
okay.
this would come out west of that
Right,
yet, so.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Brent, is it fair to say this is not an atypical frontage road configuration?
Correct, it's not atypical.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 10, please. Oh, for heaven's sakes, people.
I would note that passage of the resolution requires a majority vote, council, so you can vote on this when the vote is tied. Mayor.
Well, it is true that the logic on this one is a little challenging. However, when I was campaigning, I did say I was going to do everything I could to bring new business to town. And you did say you were going to add jobs. Therefore, I vote yes. Item passes. Moving on.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a move to enter closed session for the sole purpose of discussing contract negotiations in order to protect the public's interest.
Second.
Motion by Flanders, second by Garrick to enter executive session. Calling the question. Council is now in executive session. If I could ask Judy and Brent to stay, please. Everyone else.
Nothing.
Did you get your mail? Did you get a letter, Mark?
Yeah.
So Mark and I, did you get the letter? Brian get a letter?
All right, everybody. We're on to item number 10A, which is authorize the city attorney to draft an ordinance for the sale of 3 of the city industrial lots along Prospect Drive. Oh, excuse me, sorry. We did a motion to go back already. Sorry. Okay. Apparently, just saying, all right, we're ready is not an appropriate motion, so sorry about that. Okay. Well, we have exited executive session in which there was a unanimous vote to return from executive session. A motion by Mr. Reeker and seconded by Mr. Voles returned us from executive session. So the meeting is now back in order. Lane is AWOL, but I'm sure he'll be here in a second, so. Only contract negotiations were discussed during the executive session. Are you okay with that, Mr. Attorney? Thank you. Item number 10A, authorize the city attorney to draft an ordinance for the sale of 3 of the city industrial lots along Prospect Drive.
I move to authorize the city attorney to draft an ordinance for the sale of city property located at parcel 0021448.12, 0021448.13, and 0021448.14, with the ordinance to be presented at the next city council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Reeker.
We gonna put on terms and conditions?
We're getting there.
Sorry.
Okay, now we're at the discussion phase. In the interest of being expeditious with time, Mr. Hamilton, would you approach the microphone, please?
Philip Hamilton, 818 Reed, North Platte, Nebraska.
Thank you very much. In case you guys didn't know, Mr. Hamilton, he's the one who's put this proposal before us. Would you tell us, just for the sake of public record, what you're planning to do here?
I partnered up with Mr. Wayne Smeckley. He actually approached me about this, and since I'm a chief independent dealer, we were thinking maybe try to develop some of that area out in there. So originally, we were going to put up a 80 by 300, and we thought, well, we looked at the layout, and I talked to Brent, and there's an easement that runs through there, so we had to change a little bit on that. So now we're thinking maybe putting in 2 80 by 150 buildings there. And then in the future, on the third lot down, we put up another 80 by 150 lot, or building.
When you say the third lot, you mean the furthest lot south?
Yeah, the furthest one south, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just making sure everybody understands, that's all. So, okay. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Hamilton at this point? Seems pretty straightforward.
Mr. Hamilton.
Yes, sir.
What do you intend, do you have any idea what these buildings might be used for?
We want to invest in the city of North Platte we see that the future is going to bring in some businesses, and they're going to want a 12,000 square foot building. Sort of like what the gentleman out south did. Those are all gone now. I mean, Mr. Smeckley had already bought one of them.
Sure.
So, you know, we don't want to, I can't say we don't want to sell them, but we'd like to have something in there that and we're not a problem with saying, okay, if you guys want to say you guys can't do nothing, can't sell them or nothing for 3 years. But eventually, I think it's looking for revenue coming into those buildings, putting a business in there.
Would the building construction be similar to what's out south?
Oh, exactly, similar. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
So, after some preliminary discussion, we have a few things we want to see if you'll entertain.
Okay.
In the interest of protecting the city's interests, the city as a whole's interests, would you entertain a contract that contains the following provisions? And it would be, it would be a clawback provision if sold within 3 years. So what that would look like is if, for whatever reason, we sell you the lots and you decide you're not gonna do this 6 months from now and then turn around and sell those at a profit, we would claw back what we sold them to you as.
Sure.
Okay? Pretty straightforward.
I'm just telling you, my opinion on this, if this don't get approved within, I mean, I've got my company and chief has cut a slot for us to put these buildings in product and have them here by December 16th. Mr. Smeckley wants to move fast and swift and get them up. Our deadline, we would like to be January 31st, we'd have both buildings up. That's how fast we want to move on this project.
I don't think we've got anything here that would inhibit that.
Okay.
So just let me finish real quick. If you were to sell them at a profit within 3 years, then you would have to reimburse us at market rate for the lots.
I agree to that.
Okay. You would not request any incentives as long as you own the buildings.
Okay.
A phase one, what's the correct term? Phase one environmental would be done on the land at your cost, could be done simultaneously. The cost of that would be about $2,500 roughly.
Okay.
Okay. And then we would not be interested in offering a right of refusal on the lots across the street.
That I'd have to go with Mr. Smeckley,
Okay.
because that would be a big,
Okay. So so we've got a day or two here if I understood your timeline correctly. So we will, if you can agree to those things, then we will negotiate on price with you. I don't think we're gonna be able to sell them for $1.
okay,
But we are willing to entertain something, so we can discuss that over the next day or two to make sure we resolve something.
Okay.
So this action, if approved tonight, would be to resolve, to create the ordinance that would eventually sell it, and it would be approved at the next council meeting, theoretically. So we need to make sure that that works for you.
okay. I just need to know something that's kind of a good stone, because if I miss the deadline on Friday to order these buildings, Mr. Smeckley won't do it.
Yeah.
We'll be out.
I think if you can agree to these things and we can arrive on an agreeable price, I don't think anything would inhibit that.
Okay.
But of course, it does require a council vote.
Do you guys have a number in your head that I can bring back to Mr. Smeckley?
We would negotiate price, not in the public,
Okay,
so.
okay, that's
Okay.
fair.
Okay. So theoretically, if the council approves, we could waive the 3 readings of the ordinance. The next council meeting would be resolved in 2 weeks, theoretically.
Okay.
So, okay, you, in principle, are able to agree with those items as long as we can arrive on a price. Is that fair?
Correct.
Okay. Anyone have any other questions for Mr. Hamilton?
Mr. Mayor, just one item.
Mr. Lucas?
I just want to make sure everything's clear and for the city attorney on this. Until this goes up for public, it would go up for public notice until the ordinance passed. The city wouldn't be bearing any risk if you choose to order those buildings. And for some reason, it doesn't get to the finish line here. So just making sure we're all clear on that if you would order the buildings and maybe somebody raises their hands and has concerns or objections or anything, that there's a little bit of a gamble on your end if you go ahead and I just want to make sure the city wouldn't be responsible for any liabilities he'd incur with that. Correct, Bill?
That would certainly be my opinion, yes.
Okay.
So until it's actually passed, we wouldn't have a firm agreement from the city, so understanding, and you can, I think Mr. Bacon said that he's here on your behalf as well, so I can talk with Mr. Bacon about that, but basically the point being that this is not a firm commitment from the city, this is an attempt to reach an agreement, so we don't have an official agreement until an ordinance would be passed by the council, which can't happen until the next council meeting.
So my question to you guys is, as a city council, what's your opinion on this? Can I ask that?
You're welcome to ask.
I think you're welcome to ask, and I don't know that the council would necessarily need to answer that, and I don't know that, my advice would be that we wouldn't want to necessarily make a firm commitment, right? We are making a commitment to negotiate, although we can't agree to anything more until we have the ordinance passed.
Their hands are tied. They've done a yeoman's job. So you pretty much won since time's down.
Okay. Good with that. I will let you know tomorrow. I gotta call Mr. Smeckley tonight,
That's fine.
and,
If you just reach out to Lane in the morning,
okay,
and then if we need to talk to both of you, we'll make some time in our calendars tomorrow.
okay.
Okay?
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep, good luck with it.
Anyone else have any questions on this item? Hold on. Okay. Would anyone like to add an amendment to include the terms that I read to the resolution?
Well, I would move that the resolution be amended in accordance with the terms stated by the mayor at this hearing on this issue.
Second.
Motion by Nisley, second by Garrick, to add the following items to the amendment. A clawback option if sold within 3 years. If sold for a profit, then pay the market rate within 3 years. No incentives would be requested by this owner in the future. A phase 1 environmental impact would be done at the cost of approximately $2,500. And the city would not be interested in offering a right of refusal on the lots to the east.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Could I just clarify on that first one? So was the idea there that if they don't proceed with any construction, is that what the clawback, to clarify, that's what that means?
Yes.
Okay.
So we could
Yep.
resell.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And I just have one question. The incentives on this location or at this location, should that be specified?
For this owner.
For this owner.
For this
I know
owner.
it says for this owner, but.
So you're
For
asking
this
for a different
location.
project.
Oh,
Exactly, yeah,
okay,
that's
okay.
what I meant.
On this location.
There you go.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
Okay. Motion by Nisley, second by Garrick, right? That's what happens when I don't write it down right as you say it. Any other discussion? Calling the question on the amendment. Amendment is added. Any further discussion on the resolution? Calling the question on the resolution. Mr. Woods, didn't take your. Resolution is passed. Number 11, approve the claims.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pay the claims.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Nisley. Calling the question and approving the claims. Claims are approved. Public agenda requests. We respect our city employees and request that any complaints or criticisms of the employees not be aired in the public meeting. Excuse me. Concerns about employees should be brought to the attention of the city administrator or the mayor. Individuals in violation will be declared out of order. Anyone in the audience wish to have an agenda request for a future meeting? Everyone shaking their heads no. Mr. Reeker?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Vols to adjourn. Calling the question on adjournment, please. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.